Whenever a new Magic product hits the scene, I feel like social media comments are nearly all the same. There are too many new sets and too many new cards now. Magic doesn't let us have breathing room between sets. I miss when Magic was actually about Magic's story and not about insert Universe Beyond product. Hey, remember when Wizards of the Coast sent the pink card? A lot of people long for the days of yore. I don't think this is necessarily exclusive to Magic, but it feels like with every new announcement, there's at least one person going on about how Magic used to be better. So let's take a look back. What did Magic look like in 2014? We start off in January, where nothing happened. Nothing happened. There weren't any noteworthy events and no products released. Could you imagine Magic going a whole month now without a single product being released? To start off February, we had the release of Born of the Gods. Pre-release weekend being the weekend of February the 1st. Born of the Gods was the second set in the original Theros block. 10 years ago, Magic the Gathering sets followed a structure called blocks. You'd have a set that came out in the fall, that would be the first of the block. It'd give us any exposition, introduce us to the world, and we'd learn the main characters. So back in 2013, that would have been original Theros. Then the second set, which comes out in the winter, tensions would rise and problems would get worse. Then in the spring, we'd get the final set, which would include the climax, and give us some form of resolution. So Born of the Gods picks up where Theros left off. Theros introduced us to the plane, which was heavily inspired by Greek mythology, and features 15 gods, one for every color and then one for every 2-color pairing. Elspeth showed up, kills the Hydra, then the white god, Heliod, is so impressed he makes her his champion. There is also the story of Xenagos, a satyr planeswalker who is from Theros. He is a big party animal and drinks and parties so hard he ignites his spark and planeswalks. This makes him realize how small and insignificant his life and his home was. So now, with Born of the Gods, Mogus, the black-red god of slaughter, sends hordes of Minotaurs to attack human cities. The humans win and start to party, and Xenagos is able to feed off of the immaculate vibes and ascends to godhood right then and there. February 1st was pre-release weekend. Players could attend pre-release events. If you haven't attended a pre-release event before, it's essentially the format of Sealed, except they often have at least one pack that is virtually the same. Sealed is normally just taking 6 packs and making a 40-card deck. For Born of the Gods pre-release, you could choose the color you wanted to play beforehand, and you'd be given 3 packs of Born of the Gods, 2 packs of Theros.
Strike that. Reverse it. This way, please.
And then a seeded pack that would feature cards in the color you chose. You might be wondering why 2 packs of Theros when this was the Born of the Gods pre-release. Born of the Gods came out in an era of small sets and large sets. Nowadays, every set is a large set because they're intended to be played by themselves. Large sets have roughly 250 cards or more, whereas small sets are around 160. When Magic was in a block structure, sets of the same block were intended to have some overlap. So instead of drafting and playing sealed games of just Theros or just Born of the Gods or just Journey into Nyx, you might play just Theros or Theros and Born of the Gods, or eventually when the third set came out, you play all 3 together. Because of this, they didn't need to make some of the sets as big as others. February 7th, Born of the Gods was released. It was celebrated for its introduction of the 5 allied colored gods. This would also be the introduction to the Planeswalker Kiora to the actual game, who had previously been introduced in Duels of the Planeswalkers 2012. February 21st to 23rd was Pro Tour Born of the Gods hosted in Spain. The tournament featured both Modern and Draft, which consisted of 2 packs of Theros and 1 pack of Born of the Gods. It would eventually be won by Canadian Sean McLaren. March 1st was Born of the Gods Game Day. Many LGSs would use this opportunity to host events using newer cards, but the key thing that made the Theros Game Day special was you could play out the story. There were these things called challenge decks that essentially piloted themselves and are great for goldfishing when you want to play Magic alone. A team of players would take on the challenge deck, which could essentially be piloted by an LGS employee. The challenge decks are essentially just autopilot, so the employee was more so there to make sure the players actually earned their victory rather than actually trying to defeat them. I said you could play out the story. Here, you're defending the human cities against the hordes of Minotaurs. By defeating the challenge deck, you would win a hero card. Hero cards don't serve much of a purpose outside of these events, but can be earned throughout the year at different pre-releases. release weekends, and game days. They'd serve as permanents that started on the battlefield when players would go to play against the other challenge decks, often helping them gaining the edge over them. On March 14th, the dual deck Jace vs. Vraska was released, with an accompanying story where Vraska the assassin could destabilize the political world of Ravnica, and Jace, as the living guild pack, has to put an end to it. Little did we know, we were in the enemies to lovers arc. April 26th and 27th was the pre-release for Journey into Nyx, the finale of the Theros block, which followed very similar rules to Board of the Gods, so I won't go into greater detail. The actual set would release on May 2nd. It was another small set and now had the enemy-colored gods. In the story, Theros is still suffering from being thrown into chaos by Xenagos rising to godhood, so Planeswalker Elspeth travels to Nyx, the realm of the gods, and kills Xenagos and saves the day. Heliod rewards Elspeth by then killing her, as he was afraid of her new power. She killed one of the gods, what will stop her from killing another. This set also had the super rare booster packs, named God Packs because they literally featured all 15 of the Theros gods. This set was also the introduction of the creature type Lamia. Pro Tour Journey into Nyx was held in Atlanta, Georgia. It featured a Theros block booster draft where players drafted one pack from each set. Eventually it featured Theros block constructed, which is wild. This is the last time we've ever seen block constructed on this big of stage, and since blocks don't exist anymore, we're likely never ever going to see this again. Instead of it being like standard where you have the last couple years worth of sets to build the deck, you have the last 3 sets and have to make it work. It was neat to watch. Creativity can definitely come out when you're constricted like this. The tournament will be won by Magic Hall of Famer Patrick Chapin. On May 30th, Magic will release a black and white modern event deck. This would be the first and only modern version of this product. Event decks at the time were intended to be somewhat moderately priced, pre-packaged decks that one could feasibly pick up and play in a Friday Night Magic event and at least be somewhat competitive. This deck featured token strategy. Event decks were kinda neat, but definitely were hit or miss depending on your meta. I've heard stories of people getting stomped while playing an event with one of these. I've heard stories of people winning FNMs with these. It could go either way. June 6th was the release of Conspiracy, Magic's first multiplayer focused draft set. I think everyone should experience a Conspiracy draft at least once, whether that's Conspiracy 1 or 2, or you need a cube to emulate it. It's just so good. Being multiplayer, it heavily focused on politics, and featured neat little themes that either cared about the draft itself or could completely change the flow of the game on a whim. There were cards that directly affected the draft. This is also where we have our original voting cards. I loved it. Commander wishes it was Conspiracy. Probably my favorite thing to come from this was the card type Conspiracy. They're obviously not legal in anything, but there are quite a few that will definitely be finding a home in my Mario Party cube. I'll be honest, I love this set so much that I actually took a break from script writing just to go look at some of the cards and reminisce. On June 16th, Vintage Masters was released. It was a reprint set exclusive to Magic Online, intended as a way to put cards from Conspiracy onto the platform. You can't draft Conspiracy on MTGO, so they had to figure out some way to make sure the Vintage and Legacy formats don't have separate card lists between paper and digital. This was also a way to support the Vintage format and get more cards into circulation. On July 18th, Magic released Magic 2015, the yearly core set. It's intended to act as an introduction to Magic. They're often powered down and stick to the basics when it comes to card design. They also mostly weren't part of a bigger story. Like if you picked up Born of the Gods, you're picking up chapter 2 of a 3-story block, whereas the core sets were more so tied to the big picture of Magic as a whole, but certainly were self-contained in some ways. Magic 2015 was a little special as it featured Garrick, a planeswalker we haven't seen too much as of recently. He served as a pseudo-antagonist for a time while he was cursed, but now he's just lost in the multiverse somewhere. This set also features several cards that weren't designed by Wizards of the Coast. A handful of them are designed by other big game makers, and one of them was designed by the Magic community through a series of votes. You may notice that these cards look a little different than cards I've previously shown in this video. This set was the introduction of the new card frame, which included a smaller border size and a completely redone collector info section. This also came with the new Magic font of Bellerin. Gee, I wonder if there's a specific planeswalker that Magic's favoring here. On August 1st through 3rd, Portland, Oregon hosted Pro Tour Magic 2015. This Pro Tour featured Magic 2015 Draft, before the top 8 being the format as standard. Slovak Ivan Flock would ultimately come away champion. August 22nd was the release of From the Vault Annihilation. For $35 American, you could get 15 cards all fitting the theme of Annihilation, meaning that they were all board wipes. They were done in a weird foiling style that, if you've dealt with these cards, you know, they pringle so much more than normal foils and often just feel thicker. A handful of these cards also sported new art. Looking back on it nowadays, who in the hell would pay $35 for 15 themed cards with new art? August 25th, they announced the movement towards 2-set blocks. They were eliminating third sets and core sets. They wouldn't put this into practice until the following year. On September 5th, Dual Deck Speed vs. Cunning was released. Despite featuring characters not from the plane, this was supposed to be our first glance into the plane of Tarkir and would actually include some cards from Khans of Tarkir before they were even released in their own set. On the weekend of September 20th, LGSs across the world hosted the Khans of Tarkir pre-release. This set and world is so heavily tied to its 5 clans and their way of life that pre-release events ran with an achievement system based upon doing what your clan's identity would do and supporting other people at the pre-release who have also chosen to be in your clan. September 26th was the release of Khans of Tarkir. Story-wise, we're now on the plane of Tarkir, a plane ravaged by the warlords and their clans as they continuously fight for power. This conflict is a millennia old. This plane's history is noteworthy, as it was once dominated by dragons before the clans worked together to defeat them. Nowadays, each of the clans build themselves around one of the aspects of the dragons. This set was exciting as we were finally getting formal names for these 3 color trios. There was also tons of hype around allied color fetch lands being back. On the weekend of October 10th, Pro Tour Khans of Tarkir was hosted in Hawaii. Players drafted triple Khans before going to Standard. In November, Commander 2014 was released. That's right, this was the good old days where there was a single set of Commander decks released each year. The 2014 Commander decks are remembered as the ones with the Planeswalkers as their commanders. This was this year's gimmick. These were the first Planeswalkers that you could legally have as your commanders, but since then they've been done here and there. As of time of recording, there are 34 Planeswalkers that can be your commander. The year was finished with Dual Decks Anthology, which came out on December 5th. It was just a special way to get the first 4 dual decks. Also in December, some year-end tournaments and stuff happened. Shahar Shenhar would win the World Championship and Denmark would win the Magic Cup. So that was the year 2014 in Magic. I'm sorry if I messed up anything about competitive Magic. It's so far out of my wheelhouse, but I really felt like I wanted to include it because it was just such a big part of Magic back then. Much bigger then than it feels like today. 2014 might feel like such a long time ago, but Magic first hit shelves in 1993. There's about 20 years of MTG history older than 2014. I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, so just stay with me. There's an idea that's often used in science fiction writing called cognitive estrangement, where the writer takes something so familiar to the reader and then flips it on its head. It makes it feel uncomfortable and unfamiliar in some ways. This often leads the reader to look at something they might know very well but have grown complacent about. This could point out some valid criticisms that they previously couldn't see, but it also comes with the problem of readers often feeling just distanced from the very story. This might seem like a random time to bring up a literary term like this, but I feel like just looking at a rundown of events that happened in 2014, I've done it to myself. I don't know what my original plan was for this video. I knew there was obviously going to be an ending that was basically, hey look, we're drowning in product now and back then we didn't get as much. Remember the good old days? But just looking at what was part of 2014's Magic experience, it almost feels understimulating. It's the same way that I feel about the fact that a 2014 Harrison could sit by himself with his thoughts for nearly 20 minutes on a bus ride home from school, but the moment 2024 Harrison experiences even a lull in conversation, he can't sit too long with his thoughts without feeling a burning urge to reach for his phone. 2014, it felt like more care and creative effort went into products. Magic was willing to take risks with sets like Conspiracy, and gave themselves the breathing room to tell full 3-act stories with their block structure. 2024, it can definitely feel like some Magic products come out and feel uninspired. And the set was more so designed because everyone's going to want a copy of this card to throw into all of their commander decks. It feels like Magic takes the safe bet more now than ever, and the safe bet is what makes the most money. But when I say more now than ever, I mean more. When it comes to set releases in 2014, we had 4 standard sets, a draft innovation set, a set of 5 commander decks, a From the Vault collectible product, and an online exclusive reprint set. When it comes to 2024, by the end of the year we'll have had 5 standard sets, Modern Horizons 3, countless commander decks, countless Secret Lair products, and a paper reprint set in Ravnica Remastered that I frankly forgot even existed. Not to mention, I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of Magic Arena product. 2014 Harrison felt like he appreciated the little things more. 2024 Harrison feels overstimulated, but also feels the need to remain overstimulated. I don't know what conclusion to make of this, so I'll leave it to you. Thank you for watching. As always, I'll respond to every comment made in the first 24 hours of this video going live. If you're after that 24 hours, you're out of luck, and you'll have to wait for the next video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to bullet your birds.